Okay, so these are our notes on mitosis division. So if you haven't opened up your Cornell template to take your notes, go ahead, open Classroom. You're going to click on classwork here, and you're going to scroll down until you hit that Unit 4, Cell Growth and Reproduction. Okay, and then what you're going to open up is going to be, get that open for you, okay, and so then what you're going to do is you're going to go all the way down to that cell growth and reproduction, and at the bottom down there is the mitosis division note. So you're going to have that open, scroll on down, you'll see your Google Doc here that you can open, and it will be your Cornell notes. Remember, as you're doing these, if you haven't done them before, those of you that have been in my class know, but you're going to open them up. You're going to have an essential question you're going to type in right here. You have topic or objective, that would be your mitosis division notes. The titles at the top of the slides would go here in your left column, and the notes would go to your right. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so mitosis. So let's look at mitosis and what it means all together. I'm going to kind of adjust this just a little bit for us so that we can see the entire screen. Okay, so our essential question here today is, what is mitosis and what is it used for in the cell cycle? So this is what you're going to type in to your essential question. Okay, one of the things we're going to look like how do little elephants grow up to be big elephants? And why do animals shed their skins? It's another reason why we talk about meiosis. All right, so the process of asexual, if you remember asexual from the first semester, that means it does not have sperm or eggs. It's asexual, just splits apart to make another. Reproduction begins after a sperm fertilizes an egg. So this is at the asexual reproduction of cells happens after the sexual reproduction of the cells. And there's 3 reasons why cells reproduce by asexual reproduction. The first one would be growth. So it's how you grow. It's how why animals shed their skin, because they grow and they need bigger skins. It's how a little elephant becomes a big elephant. Repair, if there's some kind of damage, and then replacement of cells if they get killed off. Skin cancer, actually, and we'll talk about cancer a little bit more towards the end, and we'll do some projects on cancer altogether, is the abnormal growth of skin cells. So most often develops on skin exposed to the sun. And cells that reproduce by asexual reproduction reproduce constantly. So it's constantly happening in your body. It's happening right now. So the kind of overview of what we're going to talk about in mitosis, there are some phases here. It's not so much that you memorize everything or the name of the phases and the order of the phases. I really want you to focus in on what happens in each phase. And we're going to talk about some checkpoints and where cancer does maybe start to happen because the checkpoint wasn't reached. But the first phase we'll talk about is interphase, and then we'll talk about prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and cytokinesis. So our first one is called interphase, and this actually occurs before actually mitosis begins. And when we talk about meiosis, this will happen before it begins. Now, one of the things I remember here in mitosis is it has a T, and so it has a T, which means it makes 2 copies of identical cells, and you'll see how this happens. But in interphase, this is before mitosis really begins, chromosomes are copied. So it means all of our DNA is copied to make a double set. Chromosomes appear like thread-like coils, kind of like this at the start, but each chromosome and its copy. So its copy is actually called its sister chromosome. So it's an exact copy. It's like a twin sister. And we call them sister chromosomes, or you might even hear sister chromatids. And you'll hear that word a lot. And that's what we have at the end of this phase, is we have what we call sister chromatids. Every chromosome has a twin sister. And this is what it looks like between an animal and a plant cell. So you can kind of see that you see a bunch of different groups of different DNA being replicated inside. And the way I tell between a plant cell and animal cell, plants are very square cells or rectangle cells, as animals are kind of more of a circle. The next one, this is actually the first step in mitosis, is called prophase. So mitosis begins here and the cell begins to divide. What happens is the centrioles or poles appear and begin to move to the opposite ends of the cells. So you have centrioles here, and they start moving to opposite sides, okay? And our spindle fibers show up. So this is a phase where we start seeing, and these spindle fibers you'll see in a minute, are going to start to pull these guys to opposite sides of the cells. So it starts to set up the kind of the equipment that it needs to split apart those sister chromatids. And this is kind of what it looks like under a microscope. So you can kind of start to see the centrioles and the spindle fibers start to show up in an animal and a plant. The next step would be a metaphase, and it's the second step in mitosis. And this is where chromatids, or those sister chromatids or pairs of chromosomes, attach to the spindle fibers. So we have the centrioles and those spindle fibers. It's kind of like these are the things that kind of like screw into the ground if you do a lot of rock climbing, and these are our ropes. And so then they start to attach to those sister chromatids. And that's what happens in metaphase. And this is kind of what it looks like. So you kind of see the centrioles here. You see all the DNA lined up in the middle, and the spindle fibers show up, and the same in the plant. And then in anaphase, this is our third step in mitosis. Chromatids, or pairs of chromosomes, sister chromatids, separate and begin to move to opposite ends of the cell. So we each take one copy of the chromosomes, and it starts to pull them apart. So it's like the centrioles are rolling in those ropes, or spindle fibers, to split them. And this is what it kind of looks like under a microscope. So it looks like a bunch of fingers, and they're moving to opposite sides of the cell. And the fourth step in mitosis is called telophase, and this is where two nuclei form. So this is where our nucleus starts to reform to hold our DNA, okay? And our chromosomes appear as what they call chromatin. They look more like just single threads, so there's no more sister chromatids here. And this is the end. This is where mitosis ends. So this is telophase, so it starts to make another nucleus to hold all that DNA in telophase. And this is what it kind of looks like. So you kind of see the spindle fibers are disappearing, and we start now seeing kind of a division. And then in cytokinesis, this is where the cell membrane moves inward to create two daughter cells, each with its own nucleus with identical chromosomes. So one set of sister chromatids is each over here. So one twin sister is here, one twin sister is over here. We have a nucleus. Cytokinesis just means that it splits in half, okay? Animal mitosis, kind of a review. So before mitosis even begins, we have the interphase where the DNA is replicating, and then we have prophase, which is where all those central spindle fibers start showing up. Metaphase, they line up together, those spindle fibers grab them. Anaphase is where they actually separate those sister chromatids. Telophase is where, I forgot to mention this on the other one, the cleavage furrow starts to happen, and they start to move to opposite sides of the cell and make those new nucleus membranes there. And then after everything is done, cytokinesis happens where the cells actually separate. And the same thing happens in the plant. It's just you see the plant has much more rigid, rectangular or square cells than animal cells. Okay. All right, so this is our whole kind of cycle overview is in pictures. Remember, you have interphase, which is kind of our step, but it happens before. Our chromatids or sister chromatids happen over here. In our prophase is when we start seeing them, then metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and after everything is done is when we have our cytokinesis, okay? All right, if you want to see an actual animation, this is kind of a fun one. So I can click on this. This will show you a very fun kind of animation. Okay, so we can see here, we're going to start the animation. You can kind of see how fast this actually happens in a cell. So you can kind of see it here. So here we go. So you watch, here's our cell. Okay, right here is our cell. And we're going to go ahead and play this. It's kind of a fun thing to watch. There you go. And that's about how fast this actually happens. So it does it so fast. And mitosis, as you can see, has a T in it. And that's where we can see that it makes two identical cells. Okay. So if you want to look at that, that's a pretty fun thing to see. Okay. All right. So now what I want you to do is I want you to go back and process your notes. You're going to highlight any important notes. You're going to make connections to any of your notes in the left-hand column. You're going to write any questions you may have in the left-hand column and use your highlights, connections, and questions for your summary. Then at the end, you're going to write a 3 to 5 sentence summary. So as you've been doing your notes, I did forget to mention, but one of the things you want to do, those things that happen in the left-hand column, is what you're going to put in that left-hand column as you go through is going to be your titles. So these right here. So you would put anaphase. And then in your notes would be the notes from the slide, chromatids, whatever notes you want to add. Okay, if you have any questions, please let me know.